Byron Scott was part of those great Laker teams. Kareem and Magic, of course. Jeff Pearlman wrote the book, The Three-Ring Circus, and then it's now been made into an HBO Max series. And it was a special time where teams, people, it's hard to believe. Teams didn't have their own planes. You guys flew commercial.
Yes, we did.
You would often, on a 6 a.m. flight out of Seattle, you're sitting next to an insurance man and a mortgage broker.
First flight out. That was we had to take every day that we played. If we had back-to-backs, couldn't leave the night after the game because we didn't have our planes at that particular time. So, yeah, we were at the airport early in the morning, first thing smoking.
So you had the Celtics were playing a gritty style of basketball.
Yeah.
It was not an international league.
Right.
And
right.
you were playing a flashy style of basketball. The game wasn't as it wasn't global quite yet, and
Right.
it wasn't televised as often. So you didn't see a lot of Boston until you played Boston. My Sonics were up in the Kingdome.
Yep.
But back then there wasn't as much, Byron, there wasn't as much mobility. So when you faced the Sixers for 6 years, it was the same dudes.
Right.
And I do think that created an animosity and a physicality. Like you knew, here comes Steve Mix, McGinnis, Tony.
Yeah.
I liked that game. Now, I do think the NBA this year tweaked it to be more physical. I like that. But take our audience back to going to Philadelphia or Cleveland or Chicago, and it was the same team every year.
Yeah, it was great because, like you said, you knew exactly what you were playing against. You knew the type of style you were playing against. Like you said, it was going to be physical back in the 80s and 90s anyway. I loved the fact that when we would play Philly, we knew how good Andrew Toney was. You know, we knew how good Dr. J and Mo Cheeks and Bobby Jones was one of the best six-mans in the league coming off the bench. Going to Boston, you got DJ and Danny Ainge. So I knew exactly who I was playing against every time we went back there. And we knew the style that we were playing against. We knew the type of ball we were going to be playing against, you know. So I love that fact about it, you know. And it did create that animosity because we did not like them. They did not like us. We obviously had a whole lot more hatred for Boston because they were always in our way than we did Philly. You know, we kind of like Philly because they were good guys, but we couldn't stand the Celtics. Colin, we couldn't stand the Celtics, you know what I mean? Because they were always in our way. And then later on we found out why when we got to, know guys off the court a little bit more. But, the Boston Celtic-Laker rivalry, I think, was one of the greatest rivalries in all the sports because of the fact that, like you said earlier, we had that animosity towards one another, and we wanted the same things. That was winning championships.
Yeah, and you were the two best teams. When you look at the NBA, about 10 years ago, it started getting very international. I'm an NBA fan, so I'm an NFL, NBA, college football guy. One of my criticisms on the NBA for a while, although I think Adam Silver has tweaked it, the aesthetic was just threes.
Yeah.
And it's like Anthony Davis should be around the basket.
Yeah.
I don't need Anthony Davis shooting threes. I don't need Pascal Siakam shooting threes. Get him around the basket. And I think the league is moving back towards situational, not a mid-range, but the bigs are closer to the rim.
Yeah.
The international players are fascinating because they play against older men when they're young, and they come to this country, Byron, and they're not distracted. They're not into shoe deals. They don't want to move around. They come here and want to play for their team mostly forever. Do you worry that between AAU basketball, our distracted players, they go from G League to one-year college, that we're losing a little bit of the old school feel? I like European players a lot, but the league feels different than it did 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah, European players, you gotta look at a little bit of history with our American players and the European players. And I think one of the reasons that European players have closed that gap so much on basketball, especially the fundamental part of it, Colin, is because if you look at AAU players, they play 3-4 games a day for 6-7 days a week. They never practice. You go to Europe, it's total opposite. They practice twice a day on fundamentals.
Very few games. It's
very
practice.
Few games. 2 games maybe a week, but they got 2 practices. 2 a days every single day. And that first day, every morning, is all fundamental work. So that's why you see every big man in Europe that can handle the ball, can shoot it, can pass it. A la the Joker. You know what I'm saying? That's why that gap is closed so much. So I think if we're not careful, especially American basketball, We got to get back to those fundamentals of playing the game of basketball.
Yeah.
And I think the league. I love the fact that you have so many international players that's in the league. You know, because they can play. You got to give them the credit.
Yeah.
And you're right. When they normally come over here, they normally stick with one team. You know, Dirk Nowitzki, one team his whole career.
There's a sense that
you know
we're
what
visitors.
I mean? Right.
We're going to stay and be a buck.
Right.
And by the way, I'm not knocking our guys for mobility, but if I visit Italy with my wife,
right.
I'm a visitor.
Right.
I
Absolutely.
Tip better.
Absolutely.
I kind of stay in the neighborhoods that I kind of had planned to stay.
Right.
You know, I'm in LA. I can get in the car and go anywhere.
Right.
So I like where we're going. So let's talk about the 4 teams. You would have done very well in today's NBA. You were a 37% three-ball You and Larry Bird were born a little early.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you a player that's fascinating is that Luka has done something this year, and he's been scoring since he was 12.
Yeah.
This year they said, you got to defend.
Yeah.
And Luka, you can't have the ball in your hands all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That is hard for a brilliant scorer. And when I watch him, I'm like, okay, he's got self-awareness. Like, I like that part of Luka.
Yeah.
Did you know instantly he was going to be this good?
No, not even close. I mean, I saw him in Europe, and I said, all right, he's good. You know, he's getting his shot off. You know, on these guys that's a little bit lower. You know,
not a vertical player.
Yeah, a little bit slower. You know, not as tall. You know, so I was really wondering what he would look like in the NBA, and it took me probably about 6 months to say, okay, this guy's pretty damn good. You know, he can score. He gets to where he wants to go to. But I think, like you said, though, you know, his self-awareness, and Jay Kidd, you got to give him a lot of credit for this as well, of letting Luka know that, you know what, we'll be a much better team if you're off the ball sometimes and if you're making the right plays and not looking to score all the time. And if you look at that Dallas team right now, that's exactly what you're seeing. You're looking at a great willing passer, you know, a guy who can get his shot anytime he wants, but a guy that his teammates know now that he trusts them.
Right.
You know, when he makes those passes.
It matters.
So it does matter. That's why you see Dallas in this position that they're in today.
You know, there was a brief time, I always thought it was overplayed. People talked about small ball. And I'm like, are we sure small ball's not just Clay and Steph?
Right.
It didn't win for anybody else.
Right.
And now the league, once again, it's bigs.
Yeah.
You and I were talking before the break. It was Wilt into Kareem. Everybody had bigs.
Yeah.
Bob Lanier, Nate Thurman. If you didn't have a big, you were the Warriors with, you know, Clifford Ray, where you could win a title.
Right.
Or the Celtics with Dave Cowens. Maybe you could win a title, but you needed a Wes Unseld. You needed bigs. It does feel like the small ball thing. It was fun, but all I'm watching with Dallas now, they brought in size, Minnesota size, Porzingis size. I mean, even Pascal Siakam, Miles Turner, Indiana. Did you buy into small ball? What did you make of it? It doesn't feel like it had legs.
No, I'm old school. You know, I'm not, you know, you look at a lot of these teams, they talk about, positionless basketball, you know, not putting guards or forwards, you know, just playing, just got players out there playing. I still believe that you need those gritty guys. You need those guys that's going to do the dirty work. You need the Kirk Rampuses like we had back in the day, the AC Greens like we had back in the day. You need those guys that are 6'10", 6'11", 7-footers that's going to do all those dirty things for you out there on the basketball court. You know, setting the hard screens, getting the rebound. So I like the fact that we're seeing that more. I like the fact that Dallas went out and got some lively bodies that are long, athletic, 6'11", 7-footers. They can get up around the rim. They can block shots to defend because, again, it takes a lot of pressure off their perimeter players on the defensive end. Luka, for the first time this year, I've seen make efforts on that end of the floor. And, again, self-awareness of understanding that if you want to get us to a championship or if you want to win a championship or have an opportunity, you got to play on both ends of the floor. And you see he's bought into that.
The NBA, my entire life, Byron Scott listening for our radio audience, has been a players' league, back to Spencer Haywood.
Yeah.
I grew up with my Sonics and my Blazers in the 70s. It was a players' league.
Yeah.
Now, you cycle through coaches more often. It is what it is, okay?
Right.
I have no envy toward NBA players having power or money. Load management drives me nuts. I'm a kid from a small town. Okay, I grew up in a tiny town. I went to one NBA game a year. If downtown Freddie Brown and Gus Williams weren't available, and you can say to yourself, well, but it wasn't on TV when I was a kid.
Right.
I hate load management.
You're not the only one. I don't understand. When you sign a contract, you don't sign a contract that stipulates that, okay, out of the 82 games in the regular season, I'm going to play 70 because I'm going to take 12 off because of load management. I need rest. You sign a contract to play 82 games. So if you're just, hurt, and you got an opportunity where you can play, you play that game. If you're injured, you don't play. I understand that, right? So this load management bull, to me, is just it's giving the players way too much power to be able to say, you know what, I need the next couple of games off or next 2 games off because I'm getting tired. It don't make sense to me.
Data illustrates or validates. It doesn't help you.
It doesn't work.
Your efficiency numbers don't change with a day
It doesn't
off.
work. Yeah, it's a load of crock, to be honest with you. So that's how I feel about it. I'm just not a big fan of load management. I've always been a big fan. If you're able to play the game.
And for the record, wasn't there part of playing the game that you like to show off?
Yeah, you want to entertain. You know what I mean? You want to entertain. You want people to come back and say, man, did you see that shot or that dunk or that pass or whatever, and you can't do that if you're sitting down 10, 12, 15 games a year. The thing that I loved about Kobe Bean Bryant, the late great, who I loved
he was a showman.
big time. He was a showman, but he played every game that he could play. He didn't believe in load management either. He played games when he was sick. That I personally, the last 2 years, asked him, maybe you should sit this one out. Nope. These people came to see, might be the last time they ever get a chance to see me play. So I got to go play. And that's the type of players you want.
Yeah. Yeah, Kobe was one of those players that was almost an artist. Michael had certain moves that he went to. Mm-hmm. He had he's going to go to the well on about 3 mid-range, and he was great. Best mid-range player in my life.
Yeah.
Kobe was more canvas is empty. I'm just going to spill some paint.
Right. I'm just paint it up whichever way it shows up.
What is it like to coach a player who is a top 5 gifted offensive player ever? How much do you coach? How much do you manage? Where did you land on that?
I landed on managing. You know what I mean? This guy was in the league 18 years, 20 at the end of it, where he had been around and has seen everything that can be thrown at him, has been in every situation on the basketball court, offensively and defensively. So to me, it wasn't up to me to try to teach him anything offensively or defensively. It was really just to manage, to manage his minutes, manage his body, manage his practice time. Because at that time in his age and how many games he had played, when you start including playoff games and things of that nature, he's probably played 1,400 games in his career. So I was really just trying to just manage, to make sure that Kobe Bryant was able to play every single night as much as possible. So from a professional standpoint on teaching, he didn't need to be taught. He was already there. It was just really just managing everything.
So the Celtics start Eastern Conference Finals tonight. The East is really weak. Add in the injuries. It's been a layup drill.
Yeah.
So Jason Tatum's fascinating. So I've gone to see him play 3 times live. I watch a lot of Celtics games. Obviously a very good player.
Yes.
And I think about this. I grow up with more of a Jordan Kobe mindset, which is the game is mine, get out of the way. Mm-hmm. That's not always the easiest game to play with.
Right.
Tatum is very much hey, your turn. There are times I went and watched them in Chicago live, and he was one of the only stars that played that night, but he was very willing, if there was a defender on him, to go out to Derek White and let him go. And I think, man, that's just not what I grew up with.
Right.
So what is the line between, I wish Tatum was more selfish occasionally, but if you look at their net ratings offensively, it doesn't necessarily matter. Where are you on Tatum? His personality, his mentality, his game, where are you on him?
I love Jason Tatum. I love watching him play the game of basketball. Like you said, he's a very willing passer. Sometimes it's just not in a player's makeup to be
That's right.
Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, where they're going to take the shot with 3 guys on them. They don't care, because they're also willing to take the hit. They're willing to be the GOAT, and they're also willing to be that sacrificial lamb at times, So I love his demeanor on the basketball court. I love the way he plays the game. But you can't make certain guys to be the next Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, as far as their mindset. And he doesn't, I don't think, necessarily have that mindset. I think he will take it if he has to, But if other guys are going, Jaylen Brown is going, White is hitting shots, then he's more than willing to pass the ball. So I don't have a problem with the way he plays the game. I love the way he plays the game.
Yeah, I like the way they play the game as
well.
Yeah,
they play it as a team.
Yep. You suggested that maybe LeBron could be a player-coach. Now, I grew up with Lenny Wilkins, so I've seen it done.
Right.
Bill Russell, Lenny Wilkins. Right. Lenny, one of the all-time gentlemen in the sport.
Yes,
Great
he was.
human being.
Right.
What was the feedback when you said that on a show and then went out in L.A.? What was the feedback you got in your phone by saying that?
You know what? I got a lot of feedback by that. A lot of people were saying that, that's a great idea, but it won't happen, And then I had some other people that was like, "You're crazy. What do you talk about? He shouldn't be the coach." And
was it tongue in a little bit? Was a poke at LeBron about you don't like any of them, you do it.
It was a little bit of a poke, but like you said, it was a little bit of fun but seriousness as well.
Who is their best option to you?
I like Sam Cassell, and I love Mark Jackson. Mark Jackson, I think, is a guy who deserves another opportunity to coach in this league. Don't know why he's been sort of blackballed from this league for so many years. If it's not Mark Jackson, I love Sam Cassell because, number one, he's had nothing but experience on that bench as a lifelong assistant coach, and everywhere he's been has done well. The organization has done well. I think he deserves an opportunity. The name that, and I'm sure, Colin, you heard this name a bunch as well, is J.J. Redick.
Yeah.
J.J., the only thing I have that I would say that I have against him coming in right off the streets to be the Laker head coach, he has no experience.
Right.
He's never coached.
When you got your first job.
Right.
And everybody bails water. My first time on the air, we're all bailing water a little with a new job.
Right.
What is the hardest thing for a guy that's never been a head coach, goes to a head coach, in your first 2 months, maybe your first 2 weeks? What is the thing where you go, damn, this is tougher than I thought?
When you have to make every single decision. It's not a suggestion anymore. As an assistant coach, hey, coach, I think we could, let's red decide pick and rolls. Well, as the head coach, your word is bond. Whatever you say goes. So understanding that everything kind of falls on you sometimes can be overwhelming. And I think, again, for a guy that's never coached, I just look at Steve Nash, great player, Hall of Famer, never coached in his life. He goes to Brooklyn, doesn't work.
He couldn't get out of there fast enough.
No, and I really truly think if you have a year or two on the bench, that gaining experience will help you so much in your next, head coaching or getting a head coaching position somewhere else or wherever it may be. But going in there cold turkey, it's a whole lot tougher than you think.
Well, and also part of Steve Kerr's success has been a very good group of assistants behind him. That is also a strength of the new Boston coach. They upgraded the staff. Spo's always had very strong assistants behind him.
Yes.
Sometimes when you're the new guy, you're just trying to tread water. You can't build a staff yet. That's hard.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
Sean
very hard.
McVay for the Rams is much better staff builder. He was always a good coach.
Yeah.
His staffs now are better than they were his first year.
Yeah.
Like there's a learning curve to building a staff.
Absolutely. But Steve Kerr, the one thing that I would say that's a little bit different than him when he jumped out from being, doing games to the coaching ranks, he was in the front office.
Yes.
Okay, so he had a chance to be around the organization of coaches and players all that time. So it wasn't like he was jumping in cold turkey. He had been in situations where he was making decisions on draft picks and coaches and things of that nature. So it's a totally different situation of coming from where Steve Kerr came from, which was the front office, than coming from the booth and just taking over as a head coach.
You look fantastic.
Well, thank you.
I'm not even going to guess your age, but
I'm older than you. Let's just put it that way.
You are. His wife is a nurse and a nutritionist, and obviously it's blueberries in the morning and fish at night. Because, dude, you are playing weight.
You pretty much guessed that too. That's pretty good. That's pretty good, Colin.
You are at
fish at night. Lots of it too.
There you go. Great seeing you, Coach.
Colin, always a pleasure.